Higher Education Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande has acknowledged that matric results this year did come out late, but he says unfortunately some universities will simply not be accepting late applications. Nzimande says out of the country's 26 public universities, only 8 will receive late applications for the 2024 academic year. The minister also says over 650,000 students have been provisionally approved for NSFAS funding from the more than 1.5 million applicants. Students are accusing the scheme of failing to pay their November allowances, while the minister also faces corruption allegations. So, as we say, there's plenty on the go in the higher education space. Let's get your reaction to this now. Bring in SASCO's President Vezinhlanhla Simelane, who joins us via our video link this morning. And it's great to have you on the program, Vezinhlanhla. Thanks very much indeed for making time. And we can probably predict, you and I, how the start of the academic year is likely to unfold, because we've seen the scene many times, haven't we? There's going to be walk-in applications. People will be told there is no space for them in varsities, and it will lead to some kind of chaos before the start of the academic year.
Good morning to you and good morning to our viewers at home. I think, number one, it is true what you are saying, because as we speak, we are busy on the ground as members of SASCO, activists of SASCO. What you are saying exactly is happening on the ground. Their universities are packed outside. Students are looking for space and so on. So, it's that time of the year where even our activists have the responsibility to ensure that they are able to assist our students. The question of walk-ins and late applications, we in our media alerts last week, we did indicate that we are also asking for government to ensure that they release the results early, because we know that the issue of the results being released late, it was informed by COVID a long time ago. So now it cannot be a norm. It must go back to normality where results are being issued on time, so that students can be able to do applications and so on. But in the same process, we think what the universities that have done in terms of not allowing late applications is disingenuous, because they know very well that results will come late. So I don't think that it's a good approach that they are doing. That is why, as an organization, we have always called for the removal of the autonomy of the university, because they do this because they know very well that no one can tell them because they are autonomous. So that is why we think that autonomy must be scrapped, so that our government can be able to have a say in terms of what is happening in universities. And I can assure you, as things stand now, even the late applications that they are dismissing, I can tell you, maybe by the end of next week, it will be the very same universities that will begin to look for late applications, because I don't think that by this time, they will have enough space in terms of ensuring that the issue of late application is not right. For instance, I know you will find a situation where when you go to VET, for instance, a person who has been accepted by VET decides not to go to VET. They decide to go to UCT, for instance. There is that kind of a space that will be open. But we are saying we're on the ground, we are pushing for that to ensure that our students are being assisted. There's a program of SASCO called the Right to Learn campaign. Right to Learn campaign, it is where you don't just wait for someone who has been approved, but you must be there to ensure that you fight for those ones that are being rejected by the university in a form of late application and so on. So our soldiers are on the ground fighting for that, and we do believe that at some point we are going to ensure that our students indeed they get assistance.
I'm wondering if scrapping the autonomy of universities is the best solution, though, Vezinhlanhla. I mean, do we really want the government meddling in the operations of universities, given how, let's say, their meddling has fared in other institutions, including SOEs? Surely there's another way around this.
Even the autonomy that we are speaking about, for instance, we are raising an important point, because you would have seen what would have happened in terms of SOEs. Some of the SOEs, somehow, there are allegations of corruption. They will even need government to bail them out in terms of them not having enough resources. So that is a key element, that even when we say autonomy of universities must also happen, we need to look very close in terms of not ensuring that government officials or whoever that is involved, politicians and so on, they don't use that environment in order for them to ensure that they are able to do their shenanigans. Even now, I can tell you, as much as there is still autonomy, there are people who are able to put their hands in universities for business interests and so on. It does happen, you know. So the area where we are looking at, this is when the universities are taking decisions that are not appropriate. For instance, the question of increasing of tuition fees, you know, no one has a say to that, because universities are autonomous. The question of not allowing late applications, no one has a say to that, because the university, they remain autonomous. So in that sense, that is why we view it is important that at least government must have some kind of a say in terms of what is happening in those universities. But also, we must also pay attention to elements of corruption and so on. I can tell you now, there are universities where local people from politicians and so on, they are able to put their hands in terms of what business interest do they want. And universities, because they are also run by human beings, they end up falling into that trap. That is why, as an organization, we believe that we need to be very vigilant. But in areas where we think that is progressive, I think government must be able to have a say around those things.
Yeah, you know, during the 2015-2016 Fees and Roads Must Fall movement, some people who are watching from the outside, in a way, were kind of encouraged by the kind of activism that has once come back to the university space. And we know the important role that universities have played even in the country's own history. SASCO occupies, I think, a very unique positionality. You are an organization largely affiliated to the ANC that is still in government. And there's going to be all kinds of questions around how you're using that in order to push through the agenda for students, right? Especially because SASCO in many instances has had opportunities to govern in the higher education space among students, in student movements. And many people who've been there at that time have said that SASCO's performance has left a lot to be desired.
I think we are right, because we are an alliance to the African National Congress. Of course, our alliance is informed by the National Democratic Revolution, and we still believe even today that the ANC and the Mass Democratic Movement are a correct vehicle to drive the transformation agenda in South Africa.
On what basis? On what basis is that still your stance?
It's because we believe in the National Democratic Revolution. We believe that there are still challenges that we need to be fixed. Remember, one of the responsibilities of the NTR is to ensure that we address the imbalances of the past. And as things stand now, we are still in that path where we need to ensure that we bring about equality. And education is one of the important areas that we as an organization, we believe that for any society to be transformed, you need to ensure that you have a better education. That is why we are still fighting for free education. Of course, when we say free education, we don't only speak about the monetary aspect, but we speak about the content of education as well. What kind of education that we think society must be able to have in order to ensure that at least there's a better society. So the ANC, in terms of its policies and ourselves, we do agree that we need people's education for people's power. So that is why we still believe that, of course, under the leadership of the African National Congress, we can be able to achieve that. Of course, not shying away from the realities that are happening in the movement, the challenges, the element of corruption and everything. But it doesn't mean that we must then leave the movement because of those challenges. We are, as an organization, SASCO in particular, in a position to ensure that we also contribute in the renewal of our movement. So that is why we still believe that the MTM as a whole is still a correct vehicle to drive the agenda of transformation. Of course, for instance, the question of free education that was declared by our government, it was one of our struggles as an organization that we used to ensure that even in policy conferences of the ANC were there to influence the African National Congress to take this position, and indeed at some point it was realized. In 2016, Fees Must Fall. Before that, there are organizations who never believed in free education. I can tell you right now, before that, the likes of DA has said publicly that they don't believe in free education.
All right.
But SASCO was there to fight for free education. We used to have marches to UN building, even though some of us were not there during those times before Fees Must Fall. But those who came before us, we know that they used to hold marches to UN building, fighting for free education. Some of the parties, when the struggle became popular, they then go and distract you, say indeed students what they are saying is correct.
Right.
But since the inception of our organization, SASCO, from 1991, we were able to call upon free education. And under the African National Congress, of course, working with other organizations, we were able to put pressure on the ANC and declare that kind of fee-free education.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing you admit that you weren't there, because people who were there will paint a very different picture of how it was actually a non-partisan movement that spearheaded that particular agenda around 2016, 2015. Nonetheless, Vezinhlanhla Simelane, thanks for your time. Appreciate your speaking to us. Vezinhlanhla is the president of SASCO.